Oh boy, here it is, God of War Ragnarok. Always in the conversation for most anticipated game, and now always in the conversation for best game of 2022. I didn't have any expectations for this game other than it being more God of War, and it absolutely is that, but better. Pretty much everything is better, all wrapped up neatly into a shinier package that feels better to play, more rewarding, more to explore, more to do, and more to watch unfold. Atreus is no longer a child and therefore less annoying. What a great game. Let's talk about it. The exploration is crazy in this game. Most realms are like a 5-hour open world romp that sometimes even expand later into the game, and you're like, what the hell? Like Vanaheim in particular, I spent probably 10 hours total just finding and doing everything, and I still only got like 80% completion. It's a massive game, but it doesn't feel that way spatially. It's more just densely packed with things to do that all cohesively lead to each other. The level design is top notch, and the only complaint I have about exploration is that you can't fast travel from anywhere. You have to find a door, which makes sense story wise when grounded in the realism of Norse mythology, but I still would have greatly appreciated the ability to just jump to any door you want from anywhere, because sometimes an activity has you ending up way out in the boonies and it's a hell of a trek back to a portal. They don't have to rationalize it in-game, it would just be a player thing, where you skip the journey to wherever you're going and it doesn't create a bunch of plot holes. Sometimes games want to pretend they aren't games in certain ways, and the player has to suffer the sacrifices developers make in service to their idea of immersion, so that's just a personal pet peeve of mine. The combat is still amazing, pretty much the same as the last one with the exception of a new weapon you get later in the story, and it all works as intended and delivers godly carnage to your enemies. One new nice change of pace is the ability to play as Atreus in certain story sections, and I almost have more fun with him than I do Kratos because his attacks are quicker and initially stun-oriented, so you're doling out a ton of finishers in melee combat while you still have a bow for ranged attacks. I played on normal difficulty, which is called Give Me Balance in the game, and it was plenty challenging, especially before I got back into the swing of how things worked and learned enemy patterns. Enemy variety, especially boss variety, was a big downside of the previous game, and this one absolutely fixes that. You'll still get a repeat archetype encounter now and then. In fact, there's at least 3 different situations where you have a double crocodile boss fight, but there aren't 13 trolls anymore all populating the main path. In fact, the game is so self-aware of the troll fatigue from the last game that the first time you do encounter one in Ragnarok is handled hilariously, and I really appreciated it. This game has a lot of meta jokes in it, actually. Like, there are times when you're traveling with a new character and you run off to go solve a puzzle or open a chest, and they're like, what we're looking for is this way, and then Atreus has to be like, oh, he does that. He likes loot. It's kind of tone-breaking, but it also makes the characters seem more reactive and expressive. In fact, that's another thing I want to touch on. When you're traveling with people, they react to the stuff you do so seamlessly and naturally that it really helps immerse yourself in the adventure. I was on a journey with a new character, and I walked by a giant pillar of light. I turned around and randomly decided to just throw my axe into it, even though I knew it wouldn't do anything. And the character I was with actually responded to me doing that. They were like, "Are you angry at the light?" And it blew me away. Those kinds of details really just elevate the experience of playing a game to a height it otherwise couldn't reach. So let's get to the game graph, where we judge story, graphics, mechanics, and fun, giving separate scores to each before we culminate in an all-encompassing overall score at the end. Starting with story, Ragnarok's story is a banger. It's an epic, a grand mythos that keeps you engrossed from end to end. New characters all pull their weight, though one of them deserves a game award for most insufferably annoying character of 2022. Can't say who without spoiling elements of the story, though. Let's just say he's not big into violence. I actually can't talk about almost any character without spoiling stuff, which demonstrates just how important and interwoven they are into the story. Outside of the main story, though, the lore dumps Mimir unloads on you every time you get in a boat are as fascinating as ever. I really like mythology, so hearing stories about gods and whatnot literally had me pulled up at my destination 60 seconds prior, just sitting in the boat waiting for the story to conclude before it would be interrupted by me getting out. Some tropes are repeated a little too often for my taste. I'm pretty sure Kratos says some form of, "I will do what I must to protect my son," at least 30 times, no exaggeration, but the story is as compelling as you'd want it to be, so I'm giving it a 98. Next is graphics, and I probably don't need to tell you this is one of the most graphically astonishing games of this generation, which by definition pretty much means any generation. I played it on performance mode for that sweet 60 FPS smoothness, but even that looked incredible at times. For comparison, watching cutscenes in The Last of Us Part 1 remake in performance mode felt kinda ugly and underwhelming, but Ragnarok is a visual banger in any mode you select. But graphics don't do you a ton of good if there aren't pretty things and big spectacles to oogle at, and Ragnarok has both. I'm giving graphics a 98 as well. Mechanics. I think the RPG stuff has been improved since last time. There's a lot more flexibility with which armors you can and should upgrade to max, and if you're out and about pilfering loot at a decent clip, you'll have enough materials to give pretty much anything a good try. What I really like that they've changed is the skill trees. Now, in addition to buying skills, you can upgrade those skills with slotted modifiers if you use them in battle enough. Like if you do the forward dodge attack with the axe 75 times, let's say, you can upgrade it to gold tier and use XP to slot in a modifier that either improves its stunning capabilities, makes it do more damage, or makes it build up more frost. You get an absolute buttload of XP from all sources in this game, whether completing quests, killing enemies, or doing what are called labors, like killing a certain amount of Draugr or opening a certain amount of chests. The RPG mechanics do a lot of heavy lifting and making the game feel rewarding to play, and I have no complaints about anything else save for fast travel, so mechanics get a 95. Fun. The most important category. If you couldn't tell, I think this game is phenomenal. The exploration is so satisfying, combat is meaty, bosses blow the previous game out of the water, and everything is enjoyable outside of maps sometimes being hard to read what path will take you where you're trying to go, and then when you get lost and realize there's no fast travel door around, you might be tempted to just call it a day, but that's the only sour spot. To think this game would have been pretty much perfect to me if it weren't for that little hang-up. I binged this game as soon as it launched to try and get my boss rankings out on time. I played for about 36 hours over the course of 3 days with a primarily work-oriented mindset, since I was gathering footage for those videos, but even in those squalid gamer conditions, God of War Ragnarok never got old. I never stopped enjoying it, except when I got lost somewhere and strayed too far from a fast travel door, which was infrequent. Fun gets a 95. So now for the overall score, which is not an aggregate of the previous scores because some things are weighted differently, but I'm giving God of War Ragnarok a 98 out of 100. Hipsters will roll their eyes at the popular game getting an amazing score, but just play it, you'll understand. Sometimes the most anticipated game actually earns the title. Well, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe and whatnot. Watch all my other videos and give them a 98 out of 100, and I'll see you guys next time.